Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from Gina K Designs. Thanks so much for stopping by to spend some time with me here today. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting, tutorials, and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. In today's video, I'm going to be using the Gina K Designs incentive set called Take Care, and it's got these cute little silhouette flowers and some nice sentiments. So I'm going to be creating a slimline card project. I have a slimline card that measures 8.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and then I have a panel that measures 8 by 3. For my card today, I'm going to be using this pile of scraps. These were sitting on my desk and I thought just the combination of colors and pattern paper and everything was really pretty, so I thought I'd use that to make a card. So first we're going to start with the envelope. I have here my Genvelope template reference book. If you've never seen this before, this is a book where all of the measurements and things have been worked out for you to create handmade envelopes using any cardstock you have in your stash. So we'll start with a regular standard 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. We'll put it in a scoreboard across the 8.5 inch side and score at 2 inches and then 6 inches. Rotate your cardstock 1 turn to the left and score at 1 inch and 10 inches. And that'll be it for the scoreboard. And then taking a look at my envelope reference guide, I'm going to combine steps 3 and 4 together. I will make some angle cuts and cut off the little scored corners. So you'll see here. So I'm going to make an angle cut and then cut right along the score line to cut off those flaps on the side of this cardstock. So I'll do that to all 4 sides. And then once all of your cuts are complete, you should have something that starts to look like this. This is a business style slimline envelope. Okay, so we're going to take a bone folder and crease all of the folds. You'll notice that there are 2 flaps, a smaller flap and a larger flap on this envelope. You want to add adhesive to the larger flap. So we'll go ahead and apply a little bit of adhesive. And then use my bone folder to press everything into place. Make sure that we've got good contact. And that's it. So it's optional if you want to round the corners or not. For today's video, I'm not going to round the corners. I'm going to leave it just like that. And then I'm going to take some of those scraps that we had and I'm going to pump up the volume on this envelope. So I've got some purple glitter cardstock and I'm just going to adhere that to the closing flap of my envelope just to create a stepped up look. And then I'm going to add a little bit of that glitter cardstock to the front of the envelope. And again, just using my tape runner for that. And I'll cut off any of the excess. And then that'll be it for the envelope. I think it just adds a little bit of extra something something. And I like the way that looks. Alright, so let's move along to the card. I'm going to grab my panel, my white panel. This measures 8 by 3, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to cut it up. And I've got the Gina K Designs single stitched rectangle dies, and I'm going to use the smallest die and cut out 3 panels from this piece of cardstock. I've also got this scrap of pattern paper and I'm going to adhere that directly to my card base. So I'm just going to sort of figure out my placement and see if everything's going to fit nicely and if I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this panel down to my card base and just put that right in the center. I'll use my bone folder to press in all of the adhesive. And I'll just use my scissors and snip off the excess that's hanging off the edge. And then I've got some liquid glue and some strips of purple glitter cardstock. And I'll just run that adhesive down the side of my pattern paper and then apply my strip over top. And I'll put that on both sides of my little card panel. And I think that just brings a little bit of fun glittery interest. And then those strips tie into the envelope. I use the same color purple glitter strips. So then everything coordinates nicely. And now I've got my 3 panels cut out and I'm just taking a look at my stamp set to sort of figure out what I want to do here and how I want to stamp it. So I'm going to grab a couple of Gina K Designs inks and some acrylic blocks and I'm going to load up some flowers onto those acrylic blocks. And my first ink I've got here is Wild Lilac. And I was going to stamp it off, but I thought the full strength wasn't too bad. So I just sort of tested it on my scrap piece of paper. And then I decided to stamp it full strength. So I'm going to stamp that right in the center of one of my rectangles. And then I'm going to choose another flower and Gina K Designs Innocent Pink ink. And I'll stamp that in the center of a panel. And then I'm going to use Ocean Mist for my last flower and put that right in the center. And I like the way that looks. So I'm going to come back and do some more stamping later on. I decided it needed a little bit extra. So I adhere these panels down, just centering them on my card base. And I'm looking at it thinking maybe it needs a little something more. I'm just going to freehand stamp some little leaves from this stamp set using Gina K Designs Jelly Bean Green ink, and I'm going to stamp that off just so that we get a subtle light green leaf in the background. So I do that for all of the panels. I add in a bunch of leaves here and there, and I'll show you a close-up later on. You can't really see it right here because my lighting is kind of blowing out that light color. So let's move over to stamping the sentiment. I've got my sentiment loaded up onto an acrylic block, and I'm going to use my anti-static powder bag on this piece of scrap purple cardstock. And I'm going to use Gina K Designs watermark ink. I'll ink up my sentiment nice and good, and then stamp that in the center of this piece of scrap paper. I've got some white fine detail embossing powder. I'll sprinkle that over my stamped image, tap off any of the excess, and then I will heat this sentiment until it's smooth and melted. But first I'm going to put my powder away so I don't make a mess. And I'll bring my heat gun to my paper when it's good and hot so that it will heat emboss quickly and I won't get any warping on my cardstock. And then we'll move over to the trimmer. I'm just going to trim this out into an extra long sentiment strip. I want this sentiment to go across the whole front of my card. So I'll adhere that down using some tape runner and put that right in the center of my panel. I like the way that looks. I'll take some scissors, trim off the excess once again, and then that's going to be it. I'm not going to do anything else to this card. So here's a look at the envelope and the card inside of the envelope. Super pretty and dainty and elegant looking card. So here's a close-up look of that card in better lighting so that you can see the subtle stamping in the background. I think that looks really pretty. So that is it for today's video. Thanks so much for stopping by and spending a little bit of your time with me here today. I appreciate the support. You'll find all the links to the products that I use here today in the description down below, as well as a link to my Gemvelope template reference book. So coming up on screen are a couple of videos I think you might enjoy. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!